Hey everyone, Arthur here with the second part of the 360 sale, and this time they added a whole lot of major blockbusters as well as a bunch of hidden gems too from several publishers. This is much bigger than the first batch, so there's a lot to talk about here. I am also doing a deep, thorough coverage of everything the 360 has to offer before the marketplace is shut down in the end of July. If you're watching this after the marketplace closed, I will be changing the title and thumbnail of the video because this is definitely a proper coverage of what the 360 has to offer and not only of the sale itself. So if you're new here, check out the whole series for hundreds of games worth considering. The next video is almost ready as well. It will be on region-free 360 games, and that one is shaping up very cool. Very stoked about that. Will be coming shortly after this, so stay tuned, subscribe so you don't miss it. Help me out on Patreon so I can keep making these. Let's get to the 94 games, buckle up. It will be a crazy ride, there's no time to waste. Welcome to the channel, this is From the Void. Starting with Devil May Cry 4. This game is great, you get exactly what you expect. Lots of hacking and slashing with insanely over-the-top enemies from hell and heaven to slash through. It's been a while since I've played this, but the game is great, enough said. Now, there is a HD Remaster Special Edition that adds Japanese voiceover, remastered visuals of course, additional costumes, and no less than 3 new playable characters in Virgil, Trish, and Lady, which is beyond meaningful, so most will prefer that version. However, hardcore fans of Devil May Cry found a whole bunch of problems with the remaster in a gameplay performance sense, like moves not working as intended, a lot of problems with hitbox detection, especially when frame rate dips, some minor problems with textures, and a lot more. But most people won't even notice any of that. This is apparently only for high-level players really into the game. So your pick here, do you want the added features or the gameplay intact? Or both, you decide. Then DMC HD Collection includes all 3 first games in the series. Note that 1 and especially 2 are very rough, they have not aged very well, but the HD remaster is seen as better versions of them, even if far from perfect for either. Devil May Cry 3 is a fan favorite, and I agree, I haven't played in quite a while though, but in this case the Switch re-release is the best one apparently, adding a very welcome ability to switch styles on the fly and a co-op option where the second player uses Virgil for the Bloody Palace. Then finally DMC Devil May Cry, which is the reboot with short-haired Dante that was hated and criticized even before the game came out because of the changes to the main character, which I agree to the view that the character didn't need a makeover, but regardless of that, the game is freaking great. The true problem here is that the definitive edition is the best version, available for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, so I would favor that one instead of this. Next is the best Kinect game ever, or at least on the top 3 for sure. And I will do a Kinect list soon, by the way. I'm all geared up and ready for that, so stay tuned. I'll put a link in the corner if the video is already up when you're watching this. But this is a major highlight among them. It's digital only, 360 exclusive, so it needs to be talked about as much as possible. This is Leedmees. What a great and incredibly fun game. This is the kind of game we needed more of for motion controls. Leedmees is a Mario vs Donkey Kong like. You gotta guide the Leedmees to the exit while grabbing collectibles and avoiding hazards. The catch is that instead of manipulating the environment like Mario vs Donkey Kong, you are the environment. It's awesome. Very clever use of the Kinect. You use your limbs as platforms. Can form little walls with your elbows so that the little guys can turn around. We'll need to crouch crouch and hold your arms up for a long time, so this is quite the exercise too. And there are other clever details, like if you extend your hand close to the Leedmees, they will jump and grab it for a little while, then climb up your arm. It's super cool. This is a 10 out of 10 game for me, very creative, and it does perfectly what it sets out to do. So yeah, Leedmees, man, this is a must get if you have or plan on having the Kinect. And I finally get to talk about Bulletstorm. Hell yeah, Bulletstorm. You like awesomeness, you like shooting, you like boots in the enemy's ugly face, then it's slow-mo so you can shoot their ugly face in midair. But what about the far away behind cover ugly faces? I can't kick those, you might say. Well, then pull them in with your leash, why don't you? And into bladed fences, why not? Or electrified things, or into the void, and so many other insanely action things you can do in this game. This is a spectacle, capital S. I mean, just look at this sequence here, with a skyscraper-size out-of-control tire, and you can't seem to escape its rolling path of destruction. It's so awesome, it's breathtaking. And by the way, there is a remastered version of this called Full Clip Edition, which includes Duke Nukem, which is hella tempting, but the awesome graphics found here are actually downgraded there. I'll leave a link to the comparison video in the comments. I mean, to me, it's way better on the 7th generation. That happens a lot actually. They remastered stuff from the 7 to 8 generations, but they end up looking worse. But any way you decide, do play Bulletstorm. A total blast of a game. And now a very important title I've been meaning to feature for a while, Darkstalkers Ressurrection. This is a mini compilation of two games, Night Warrior Darkstalkers Revenge, which is the second game in the series, and its sequel, Darkstalkers 3. These two games have been made available in only a few platforms. 3 is on the PSP and Sega Saturn, for instance, but this compilation, to my knowledge, is the only one with the HD remastered visuals, as well as all content from other versions and several extra things like challenges and concept art and stuff for both games. The games themselves are awesome. 3 in particular is my favorite Darkstalkers I've played so far. Resurrection was very well received, and it's only found in the 7th generation of consoles. The more recent Capcom Kollection contains all Darkstalkers games, but they're all parts of the arcade originals, which is great in its own right, but this is different and definitely holds its value. So the discount is very welcome and makes this a must grab for fighting game fans, in my opinion. Following up with a great shoot 'em up from Capcom, and hey, if you like shoot 'em ups, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next upload, which will be on region-free games, featuring a whole bunch of awesome shmups on the 360. In the meanwhile, let's take a look at 1942 Joint Strike. This is a pretty awesome shoot 'em up, man. It has a more old-school approach with the normal style of accumulating power-ups that keep making your shots better as long as you don't die. There are missiles and bombs too, and what's remarkable here is the level design. Each stage is very well made as it keeps ramping up the difficulty, and in the end there may be even sequences where you lose the ability to shoot and have to avoid the incoming enemies and the boss chasing you down. It's pretty cool. So yeah, if you like shoot 'em ups, this is more than solid. Great game, 1942 Joint Strike. This one has a physical though. It's one of the 8 games in the Capcom Digital Collection. Next is the Street Fighter section. Several important games here with limited availability, beginning with one of the most important titles in the series to talk about, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online Edition.
You know what they say, the third strike is what counts. You know, hey, you can get it too, don't think that I can knock you out.
Okay, Street Fighter 3 is one of the least known in the series, excluding the original, because as far as home consoles go, both Street Fighter 3 and its first update called Second Impact were only released on the Dreamcast. More consoles like the PlayStation 2 and OG Xbox eventually saw the release of the second update, Third Strike, but it only happened like 7 years after the original Street Fighter 3 came out in arcades, so many people miss on this entry and its updates. More recently, another version was released for Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PCs inside the 30th Anniversary Collection, but that one is very different from this online edition, which is stuck in the 7th generation as of now. Online edition is largely seen as the best out of the official versions of the game right now, as it counts with a completely new artwork, which looks great, improved sound, and the most amount of modes compared to all other versions, including the 30th Anniversary one, which is more like a port of the arcade, which is cool in its own right of course, but if you're looking for the best official version of Third Strike, Online Edition, most will agree, currently still holds that title. And like I said, it's stuck in the 7th generation, only on the 360 and PlayStation 3. Street Fighter 2 has no less than 8 different iterations, or much more if you consider the sub-versions of each version. And they keep releasing more of them, by the way, to this day, but 2 of those versions are on the 360 and in this price reduction bonanza. One of the best among all these versions is Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Edition. Until recently, when Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final Challengers, was released, HD Edition was the most complete version of the game, with the roster of turbo, fully redrawn sprites and portraits, as well as the option to use the pixel sprites as well, HD treatment, new modes, an improved training mode, multiplayer online, and more. For a big fan of Street Fighter 2, this is a great entry to have. It is also found in physical form, however, in the Capcom Digital Collection. Then the other version of Street Fighter 2 here is Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. This is the entry that allows you to ramp up the speed to crazy levels. It also includes new color palettes for the characters, a reworked balance between them, and more difficult to perform special moves. This is somewhat less important because it's a straight port that was also included in more recent collections such as the 30th Anniversary. Up next is Street Fighter vs. Tekken. Despite the negativity this game got at launch, the reviews are very positive. This is a great game, but there are 2 important things to mention. First, there are loads of DLCs here, including one for 12 added characters, which will set you back $20, and the remaining DLCs are a bunch of costumes. However, the Xbox 360 version does not offer 5 extra characters that are exclusive to the PlayStation versions, meaning PlayStation 3 and Vita. Those are the guy from Infamous, 2 Sony mascots, Pac-Man, and the hilarious bad cover Mega Man, which is a total must-have for me. And Street Fighter vs. Tekken is not backwards compatible, and given that the Steam version is absolutely broken, do not get the Steam version. So if the 360 is your only option, by all means take advantage of this sale, but if you can opt for the PlayStation 3 or Vita, those are better. Following up with a harshly underrated game that I covered in my last video, Remember Me. This is freaking great, and how the critics killed it is so unfair. This is among the best AAA games of the generation, with real high production value you would never guess by reading the reviews. Remember Me is rather cinematic, depicting a formidable dystopian future, very interesting, graphics are impressive, voiceover is great, character models are cool, story is exciting and intriguing, the sequences where you have to rewind a memory and find glitches capable of being hacked are a great change of pace, and the combat is pretty cool too, similar to Batman Arkham games, all about keeping up a combo while reading the actions of the enemies and reacting accordingly, which is very cool because fights get really crowded. I can't see much to complain about this game, and I hate how many reviewers use the predictable and unfair pun of calling this unforgettable. It is most certainly not. And with the awesome 90% discount, this is a steal. A must get right here. Next is a hidden gem for sure from a very well-known franchise, Space Invaders Infinity Gene. This was very well received and I agree. If you like shoot 'em ups, this is up there with the best of them. It may not look like it, I realize, and the sound effects are a bit irritating, so I'd suggest tuning those down a bit. The music is insane, I like it, but it can be overwhelming too, because this game is intense in every single way. I like the different weapons and the varied stages and enemy patterns. It's good to see how much they can make in a game if the visuals are kept super simple. Needless to say, Infinity Gene gets pretty hard, but remains fun and engaging throughout. Excellent game here, and the discount is great. Moving on to a game that surprised me because it's much better than what reviewers made it seem. Strider. This is the 2014 reboot that actually turns the game into a Metroidvania. I did not know that. Reviewers calling this a platformer out there, jeez. Totally a Metroidvania and a great one because it combines the exploration with the signature agility of the Strider series, which results in an awesome mix. You keep learning new moves that can many times be used both for the Metroidvania exploration and for combat. Some of the things you learn here make the game quite enjoyable. This counts with surprising amount of production. It also looks and sounds great. This is absolutely solid, a 8.5 in my opinion, no less. So with the discount, this is an easy pick for sure. Moving on to half action, half puzzle, and another half unexpected violence for a total of 150% cool hidden gem right here. This is Warp. You control this alien guy here who is being experimented on by creepy scientist guys, but he gets his alien stuff back and now it's revenge time. Bloody revenge, dude. This alien guy looks unassuming, but is a ruthless killing machine. He can teleport through walls and also inside objects of about the same mass as his, which is the main cool idea of the game, and this allows you to move completely undetected, but when you run out of cylinders to warp into, you can just as easily teleport into the scientists and mess them up until they freaking explode from the inside out. Really gruesome. Of course, there's a lot more, but suffice it to say, this is a really interesting game. Finding your way around, especially while grabbing all the collectibles, is challenging and enjoyable. And for mere 99 cents, this is a must grab in my opinion. Next is a freaking excellent series with 3 games that unfortunately never really stuck. I guess Capcom has pretty much given up at this point after so many attempts, which is a shame because these are great. We're talking about Bionic Commando. All 3 entries in the series were included in the discounts, which is awesome because they're all excellent. First, let's talk briefly about the 2 reboots that are more faithful to the original 2D action platformers called Bionic Commando Rearmed 1 and 2. They are both very competent in keeping the high challenge and the movement limitations of the originals. These are platformers where you can't jump for Pete's sake, but they compensate with all the fantastic things that the bionic arm is capable of doing. Getting good at using it though is what's challenging about these games, especially because boss fights are real hard, but they are great if you get into them. Very worth having on the 360, especially now with the crazy 90% discount they're getting. Rearmed 1 is digital only, but Rearmed 2 is found physically for the 360 only in the Capcom Digital Collection along with 7 other games. And they also tried putting the series in 3D for the first time with a sort of reboot simply called Bionic Commando. This is pretty cool, I like it a lot. It's an early game in the generation. The combat feels a little loose, could be a bit tighter. There are also some gameplay design ideas that were gradually rejected during this generation, like more scarce checkpoints that could lead to you replaying long sections, but the issues are minor. This is definitely a fun game. The uses of the bionic arm are actually pretty impressive, both for traversal and for combat. You can attach it to poles and rails to fling yourself like Spider-Man. The targeting system takes a minute to understand, so you can expect failing a little bit in the very first stage, but soon soon enough you will understand it, and it works pretty well. You can also attach it to enemies and launch yourself into them for a pretty awesome move. This, coupled with several other things you can do, including using firearms, makes the combat rather dynamic and enjoyable. Different enemies force you to make use of all your abilities. This is a very solid and enjoyable game here, check it out. Very much worth the $149 discounted price. Then one of my favorites on the list is Burnout Crash. This game, man, what a cool and unique concept. I already covered it once, but I'm happy to feature it again because this is so much fun. It's all about crashing your car with other cars in intersections, believe it or not. And incredibly, it manages to create a deeply and engaging gameplay with just that. After the crash, you immediately lose your ability to drive, but your vehicle is equipped with freaking explosives, naturally. So you can choose the moment when to set them off, ideally when you can cause the most amount of damage and impede other vehicles of escaping the intersection of hell you're creating. As you explode, your car is launched into the air, then you regain control of it so you can fall into even more vehicles. And after enough damage is caused, you get special feature events to happen like airplane landings and freaking tornadoes. It's awesome. This was already cheap for $4.99 and now it's an absolute must grab for mere 49 cents. 49 cents, I mean, come on, it's a bubblegum. Next is another one in the series, Burnout 3 Takedown. Before anything, this, as of the recording of this video, is not showing up with a discount. Xbox is aware of this. They had all 8 or 9 games with this problem listed in the announcement, and they fixed pretty much every single one of them, but it has only been a few days since the discounts went live, so they may still fix this. In any case, the game is great, one of the best racing games of its generation, the 6th generation. This is a part of the OG Xbox entry, and it holds up according to everyone. I will play this, I'm just waiting for the discount to take effect, because I've spent too much money already buying most of these at full price, and I am not rich, I need help. So subscribe, join the Patreon, please, thanks. Next is a brilliant and rather obscure action platformer called Dustforce. This is all about sweeping floors, walls and ceilings to remove debris and dust during platforming movement, which is very odd and very tricky to pull off, but very cool if you do. The stages are incredibly well crafted, the music is a major highlight, but it's copyrighted so I can't use it, and the things you can pull off are awesome, providing some deeply satisfying fluidity to the game. Dustforce is a great game from Capcom that few know about, a unique take on platforming, very much worth picking up, especially with the crazy 90% discount, reducing it to less than $1. And this has no forwards compatibility. Easy pick right here. Next is Adrenaline Misfits. This is a Kinect game 100%. I will be covering all the best Kinect games in a later video, by the way, so stay tuned. But this one is a mixed bag. I'm not 100% sure of it at this point. I need to play more of it with different lighting and move the couch maybe, because the thing struggles to get my moves. It doesn't turn great to the left and then suddenly does more than I wanted. I do like the visuals though, as well as the characters' designs, and if there is a way to make it work properly, I'd say this is a great game, but the way it fails to get my motion so far, I can't really recommend it. It's more frustrating than fun, but stay tuned to the Kinect video coming soon when I'll have tried this more. Next is Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection with a K. This is the compilation of arcade parts of MK1, 2, and Ultimate MK3. I refuse to explain what they're about. Now, there are not too many modern time versions of these 3 games, so these may be interesting. On the other hand, this collection does little to nothing to improve these 3 games, and I hear the online mode they added is buggy. So this is more for a Mortal Kombat fan that doesn't have the old school options for these. The discount is not the best either. It's actually the worst discount of all games on the list, which is lame. Next is one of the two very underrated games on this series, 99 Nights 2. Like I said last time I covered this, both 99 Nights were panned by Western critics but praised by Japanese ones. And when that happens, I almost always agree with the Japanese critics, especially the ones from Famitsu, who always places 4 people reviewing each of the games. Critics in this side of the world complain that the game has no depth, but that's totally not true. The boss fights will require a lot of involvement from the player, and I also really like the small campaign structure for each character, plus the production value is real high, with some awesome CG cutscenes and cool character designs. Fans of Musou games should really consider both N3 games, but the original was never released digitally. I got this wrong last time. I thought it was delisted, but at least the sequel is found digitally and benefits a lot from the discount, reducing it by over 20 bucks, cause this was kind of overpriced. The next few are very famous, but there is a reason to talk about these 360 versions. These are the Batman Arkham games. Arkham Asylum, City and Origins are all excellent, needless to say. My favorite is the original with a more confined sandbox style that makes the whole experience even more interesting to me, though I also like the flying around open world style that the series took on Sin City. No need for much explanations about these, right? Combat is fantastic, all about keeping a flow of hits, managing the crowds of enemies, reading their behaviors. Then exploration is awesome, the detective mode is great. I mean, these games are excellent, including Origins, which may not be at the same level of the other ones, but it's still pretty great. And that one is not found in more recent collections they released. Your only options for that are the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii U and PCs. Then Batman Arkham Origins Black Gate is the companion game to Origins, but now in a side-scroller style. This one didn't get a great reception though, and I haven't played it yet. Critics did not like the transition to 2D, which they say feels sloppy with repetitive level design and not adding anything to the series in meaningful ways. Finally, the original and City are available on more modern consoles, but the visuals take a serious beating in the quote-unquote remasters. Pretty much everyone agrees that the 7th generation versions look much better. However, all these have physical versions with all DLCs in the disc, so that could be a better option. Then this next one is not excellent, but still a fun time. Air Conflict's Secret Wars. This is a third-person aerial shooter divided into stages with missions to tackle, including stealth ones, which makes you fly close to the ground, which is tricky and cool. I also really like the shooting here, because there is a marker for where you need to shoot to compensate the enemy's movement and yours. Presentation is definitely lacking though. Cutscenes with a single picture and long conversations are a bit of a drag, especially in the beginning, but as the story unfolds it gets better. But the game is definitely fun, with varied missions and combat, just not anything stellar. Next is one of my favorite first-person shooters of all time, Black. I played this one on the PlayStation 2 back in the day, and what a phenomenal ride it was. This game is not kidding around. It offers one of the best shooting actions, and it's hard to explain why. It's a whole combination of things. Level design certainly plays a big role, but so does the raw feeling that comes from shooting stuff, the damage your bullets and explosions cause in the environment, how you can make use of that to your advantage. This is insanely well made, so this is probably the easiest recommendation for freaking 99 cents. Go right ahead. Black is a fantastic game. Next is a pretty obscure game from Bethesda called Brink. This is a first-person shooter with a rather interesting setting. As the sea levels rise, people built a floating city called the Ark, and now it's been overrun with climate refugees and it's out of control, so a civil war has ensued. The game counts with a pretty deep customization and progression system, and is also very focused on the multiplayer aspect. In fact, even the campaign mode feels like multiplayer. It can be played with other people too, with all stages revolving around typical online gameplay types like hold the fort, escort the VIP, capture the flag, and many variations of those things. It's definitely cool if you're into those, and the progression is solid. I mean, people were not super hot about it, but it's far from a bad game. This next one is complicated. Alien Spidy. Okay, this is relentless. However friendly it looks and simple the platforming may seem, the game completely shatters all that by being really demanding with the precision. Your spider guy can shoot webs to swing from side A to side B, but the game wants you to be very precise about that, and since you have to do it while falling and with only one chance to do it right most of the time, you will fail a lot. That's by design though, cause it's going for the speedrun side of gaming, and respawns are generous, so it's not a bad thing necessarily, but right there it already removes casual platformer fans from the target audience, which is okay, but it's much more hardcore than that. Alien Spidey requires you to collect a big amount of medals before it allows you to reach the final stage in a world so that you can move to the next world. Problem is that it's the hardest thing ever to get 2 medals in a level, let alone 3, 4, and 5, which are simply borderline impossible. So this game sets a ridiculously high learning curve for the player to the point where it's too much for most of us. You have to be super into hardcore precision platforming and speedruns to enjoy this. If you do, Alien Spidey is a total blast, because you have the tools to do the things here. You only need to train a lot to become an absolute master at using them. So it's not a bad game, but do not attempt if you're not that very specific player. Moving on to Choplifter HD. This is odd but kinda cool. You ride a helicopter and have to rescue war victims, which is an unusual gameplay idea for sure. You have to be extra careful about landing, hitting stuff, and getting shot while carrying rescuees because they may die. You can turn the helicopter facing the camera in order to shoot down enemies positioned that way, which is an interesting addition for sure. Fuel is also a concern. There will be a couple of spots where you can refill. So yeah, cool hidden gem here, and this was delisted from Steam, so right now only the 7th generation of consoles offers it. Next we have Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide. Dude, remember Dead Island's first announcement trailer with the girl and the reversed zombie outbreak scenes? That was sick, and one of the most emotional trailers ever. But anyway, Dead Island and its standalone DLC are pretty awesome. These are first-person open-world action RPGs with zombies and an emphasis on melee weapons rather than firearms, so they stand apart for sure. You progress by leveling up and doing quests. Cool games, but they have been bundled together in definitive editions for newer systems, which are seen as better options for most, though the graphical comparison is a matter of taste. The definitive edition has surfaces and textures looking more natural, but the original looks more beautiful with better colors in my opinion. But it's definitely a matter of taste, you be the judge. Moving on to the Dead Rising series. Those are also zombie genocide types of games, but now in third person and with wackier and over-the-topier weapons to use to do the zombie slaughtering with. It's been a while since I've played any of these, and my memory may be faulty about them, but I remember having good fun with 1 and 2. Dead Rising 1's best version is either this one or the Xbox One and series. People seem to be conflicted about it, which tells me that they are both great, so this is a safe grab. Then Dead Rising 2 is more complicated. First of all, it has a retcon reimagined version, also on sale, called Off the Record, that replaces the protagonist with Frank West from the original, so the photography system from that game makes a comeback here. It's considered by most fans a different game, but the plot is the same, only from a different perspective, and the gameplay sequences are also copy-pasted for the most part, so most people will want to choose one or the other. To make matters more confusing, Off the Road has worse scores than 2 because reviewers didn't find enough additions to the game to justify players of 2 to come back for Off the Record. But if you ask people who played both of them, the majority seems to agree that Off the Record is the one to go with if you only want to play one of them. All 3 games were re-released on One and Series and PlayStation 4, but many people say that they all have performance issues, so I think the 360 versions are better, and those are not backwards compatible, so you may want to grab them with the discount. Next on the list is Darkstar One Broken Alliance. This game is impressive. Your spaceship is capable of upgrading itself when you find the right parts, which leads to a very engaging progression because everything changes for the better as you go on. The combat here is actually great. You can easily pick up speed and especially slow down drastically, which enables you to regain the sights on your enemy quickly and in an organic and believable way too. This is further enhanced by a clever targeting system. There is a lot of freedom to do whatever you want with a whole lot of different missions. Darkstar One is definitely one to consider, especially with the 80% discount. And physicals, I believe, have been getting pricier. Moving on to Microbot. This one you control a tiny machine injected into the bloodstream of a host to help getting rid of infections and such. It's a twin-stick shooter where your machine has 3 appendages that you can equip with different weapons and propulsion parts, as well as upgrade them. And later, the number of appendages increases, making it a whole lot better. The combinations are varied and pretty interesting, with homing missiles, machine guns, dart weapons, and a lot more. The enemies pose quite a threat, especially when in big numbers, and exploring feels great. Solid game right here. Rather underrated too, and now for less than $1 this is an easy pick in my opinion. Next, for a nice change of pace, is Omerta City of Gangsters. This is odd. It's half a strategy game, half a city tycoon simulation kinda deal. I don't like the tycoon side of it. I find it rather boring. Lots of waiting around for your units to complete the tasks, like negotiating, raiding breweries, gathering information and such. There is not a lot of depth in terms of the strategic side of it. It's not bad, but also not great. The combat side is much better. You have special moves for each character, pistols and melee weapons, environments with obstacles you can shoot through, and a lot more, so the strategy aspect of the combat feels very nice. The gangster world they create here is also pretty well made. Next is the amusing Deathspank. This is one of the most hilarious and thoroughly enjoyable action adventures, full of real funny lines between Deathspank and the NPCs, where you can actually choose the funniest one, which is a blast because the voiceover is great here, the action is also solid, you can equip up to 4 weapons at the same time, melee or ranged. This is all about getting random loot, and the graphics are pretty unique, with the world rolling over like that. I love it. There's also a sequel on the 360, but at least for now, the only one getting a discount is the original. By the way, there is a third game in the series that I did not know about until friend of the channel Dominic, who has his own channel, which is very cool by the way, I'll leave a link in the description, pointed this out for me. Next,
Resident Evil.
the HD remaster of the original, Resident Evil 0, 4, 5, 6, and Revelations are all getting a whopping 90% discount. These are super well known, so I'll be extra quick. The HD remaster is brilliant, okay? It's a must play, what a formidable game. This version of 0 is also the remaster with HD graphics, a great way to play this game too. Resident Evil 4 though is not the HD remaster version, still a brilliant game, so not a bad choice if you wanna play it on the 360, but I think most people agree that the HD remasters on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are better. Then Resident Evil 5 has a gold version physically for the Xbox 360 with the DLCs in the disc, as well as in newer systems with remastered graphics. I hear the PC gold edition of 5 is even better. Then 6 is kinda the black sheep, but not as bad as many people may think. There are versions with all the DLCs on newer systems to consider though. Then Revelations is a pretty cool different take with several main characters in an episodic structure. This one though has a lot of versions with significant differences, including the original, which is only on the 3DS. They vary a lot between each other to the point where no one seems to agree which is a clear winner, so another one you can safely pick here in my opinion. This next one is a nice little throwback, but only for a select part of the audience. Yie Ar Kung Fu. No idea if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not. Yar was an arcade game from Konami. It also made it to the Famicom, ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, and it's archaic, let's put it like that. Few will jam with this game, I believe. This is a fighter, but very old school, predates any Street Fighter or anything else pretty much, and it shows. It's all about being careful, very careful, and finding the best way to hit the enemy without getting hit. The rules that dictate who hits whom is what's odd about this, because it never becomes apparent why your kick didn't hit, but theirs did. Very rudimentary stuff here, but kind of fun if you can handle real old school games like this. There is definitely a addictive quality here, just good luck getting past the club with shield guy. This version has different graphics or the original graphics to choose, but frankly it doesn't matter much, they both look bad. The discount is also not the best, 99 cents would feel much better. Next is Birds of Steel. This is a great aerial shooter with heart-pumping action, a long campaign, and great presentation. I already covered it once, so I'll be brief here, and I'll just mention that it also counts with some very meaningful DLCs with new campaigns, but those are expensive for almost 27 bucks in total. Check my DLCs video for more info on this. DLCs unfortunately are not getting discounts, at least not yet, and Birds of Steel is a 7th generation only game found on Xbox 360s and PlayStation 3, and that's it, but it does have physical versions. Next is The Evil Within. Great horror survival game with nice spacing that goes from tense to horrific and some great combat design to boot. If you're a fan of horror games, you will likely enjoy this one. Note however that this counts with a lot of DLCs and they're pretty meaningful and expensive. The game's full price is crazy expensive too, but it got a 95% discount, dropping it by no less than $57. But if you're also grabbing the DLCs, you're still paying a good amount, so note that this game has physical options without the DLCs. Next is an underrated game, I'd even call it a hidden gem, more hidden than gem but still, and it's a 3D platformer, which is a rare kind in this generation. We're talking about Spare Parts. Reviews of this game are very low, below 5s mostly, and I disagree. This may not be anything spectacular, but it's a fun little 3D platformer. With a bit of action and puzzle on the side, criticisms of the game are as follows. Budget presentation? Dude, what? Boring combat? Yeah, kinda. It's not the game's strong suit for sure. Then sloppy platforming and bad controls. I disagree there. This is as sloppy and with bad controls as PlayStation 1 Crash Bandicoots. Okay, it's the fixed camera that's the issue. That's by design. It introduces on purpose the difficulty of 3D placement without being able to rotate the camera. If you don't like that kind of thing, that's totally fine. So this game is not for you, but it's not sloppy in my view. Then on the plus side, this has a bunch of cool moves to learn, things to find and unlock. As you do, you have reason to come back to previous stages and explore some more. I really like the small sandbox stage size here too. I mean, sure, the game is nothing to write home about, but if you're into collectathon 3D puzzle platformers, this is definitely worth the 99 cents it's going for now. This is Anna Extended Edition. This is a horror puzzle game in first person. It counts with some great atmosphere that actually succeeds in making it scary. The narrative starts off very unassuming but picks up a whole lot, and it even counts with multiple endings. The point and click nature doesn't migrate perfectly to the Xbox 360, and you will need to adjust the sensitivity of the analog stick. Also, the item using system is not the best, but these are minor problems. There is definitely a worthwhile game here if you are a horror and puzzle fan. The Steam version of this game is currently very problematic with a intrusive launcher that forces you to watch advertisement, so the 360 is the better option now that it's on sale. Next is a great puzzle hidden gem called Voodoo Dice. I already spoke about this one very recently. The puzzles are excellent here, all about moving as a dice that rolls around and figuring out ways to match your top side number with the number on blocks impeding your progress, or to other ones so you can combine with them, then get rid of them in the correct places. It's a whole thing. It's pretty cool, nothing glamorous, but a fine puzzle game for fans. This next one is probably a skip, Dollar Dash. This is almost entirely a multiplayer focused game, and online would be better, but I don't think there is anyone playing this right now. I didn't find this all that fun, I'm afraid. You control a thief breaking into a bank to rack up some cash, which will make you slower to run, and you have to carry it all the way to the van. Other players will try to steal the money away from you, and you do the same to them. There are other modes like the safe one, where players compete to see who can hold the big safe for longer. Many items and power-ups are available to use against enemies or improve your movement and defense. I mean, it's not a bad game, but also not too exciting, I don't think. Maybe if you have other people to play this with, it could be a fun distraction. Otherwise, I'd skip it. Now we have Rocket Riot. The gameplay is fun here, but the single player to me left something to be desired. You fly around and shoot rockets at opponents, while the entire scenario can be destroyed, which they also use for some missions, where you have to find some stuff before the opponents do, for instance. I found it a bit repetitive though, with only a few mission types, but it can be fun in short bursts, and multiplayer makes it a whole lot better. And next is the unbelievable The Fancy Pants Adventures. This was originally a series of browser-based games that got a lot of notoriety back in the day, but has since dissipated, I feel like, which is a very sad thing because this is a great platformer with handmade graphics and animations and remarkable physics. You can do some awesome momentum-based maneuvers here, there's a lot of fluidity, so many things to find, with some collectibles posing a real platforming challenge, so there is a lot of game here, especially for less than $1. Easy pick here, go right ahead. Next is a pretty disappointing game called Russian Attack X Patriot. I find this ugly looking, repetitive in gameplay, and with a poor execution of its ideas. There is a stealth inclination that really doesn't amount to much because the AI is completely stupid. The action is a bit better, especially in boss fights, and exploration is the best aspect of it, but it's still a very rough game. I don't see too much reason to go for it, I'm afraid, especially since the discount could have been better. Following up with Frogger Hyper Arcade Edition. This is okay, I guess, but there's nothing hyper about it, nothing. The gameplay is very similar to the original, even with the 5 or 6 new modes here. The gameplay remains the same, just hop your way to the top, place a frog in one of the slots, rinse and repeat. I do like a few of the new modes, especially the one where you compete with the CPU or other players locally while painting the floor with your colors. This mode is cool, but the game as a whole is very lacking. There isn't anything deep or any kind of progression, and the old school Frogger gameplay is just not fun enough to sustain it. This is very hard to recommend even with the discount. You gotta be very into Frogger. Moving on to a game that has gotten ridiculously expensive for physicals recently. This is Tornado Outbreak. You're definitely looking at a hidden gem here. The game is pretty well made, with some surprising production value. It plays similar to Katamari games. Your tornado guy destroys and sucks up stuff to become bigger and bigger and be able to cause damage to bigger things. But it goes beyond that with some pretty interesting ideas. There are these fire guys hidden under objects, which you must find, and there is a whole gameplay mechanism around that, where you can chain them together and consume all at once. As soon as you start doing that though, the tornado gets slower, so you need to find the next one fast. The bigger the chain, the more you add to your timer limit, so it's a whole thing to consider here. Pretty neat game, and the discount makes it over 20 times cheaper than the physicals for the 360, which is commanding crazy prices recently. Next is the Fast Fire section, because there is just no way I could cover 94 games if I were to play all of them, and I don't have the monies for all this either. So I chose some of them to simply mention fast, beginning with the Need for Speed games. First of all, Undercover shows up in the discount list, but the game has been delisted for some time, so I don't know what's up with that. I don't think they will be relisting it. The other two are Most Wanted and Rivals. Most Wanted, by the way, is the 2012 game, not a part of the 2005 entry. They have the same name because they like messing with us, I guess. And both Most Wanted and Rivals were very well received with scores up to 9s. Most Wanted has a Wii U version that uses the gamepad in interesting ways, and Rivals is also on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Next is Fight Night Round 3. I'm not into boxing games almost at all, so I don't have a formed opinion about this, but review seems to be very positive, which is true about all Fight Night games, I believe. I hear this series does a different control scheme where you use the analog sticks to do the punching, which feels great, so fans of boxing games should consider picking this one up, especially with a substantial discount. Red Faction Guerrilla is also on sale. This game also received a remastered treatment, so keep that in mind. This is a third-person shooter with loads of destruction and pretty cool weapons taking place in Mars. I am definitely playing this soon. Moving on to all the Lego games. There are so many, I had no idea. There's the Lego Movie video game, Lego Batman 3, Lego Jurassic World, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Lego Marvel's Avengers, Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens, Harry Potter Years 1 through 4 and Years 5 through 7, weird names there. And these are all fun and amusing games, I hear. Always provide a lot of action and adventuring, but also adding the trademark Lego silliness, resulting in very fun games. Then there is Harry Potter for Kinect. A lot of effort went into this. You join in the Harry Potter world with a new character. The move stuff replicates the spells and many other things, but reviews are lukewarm about it, sometimes very negative. This seems to be more for young children who are into the Harry Potter world. Tropical 3 and 5 are also available. I never played any Tropical game, can't say anything about them, other than that they are construction management sims that have been well received, especially 3. Gianna Sisters Twisted Dream, I hear, is a pretty solid Mario Bros style platformer. It's found almost everywhere though, and the Ultimate Edition for the Switch has extra levels. Dishonored is another excellent game with a definitive edition in more modern consoles, including the DLCs. Dishonored reminds me of BioShock not only because of the first-person view, but more so because you explore the environments and gather loot and money and lore in a similar way. I like this exploration aspect a lot, and I don't know, there aren't too many games out there that do this, I feel, so I really like the Dishonored series. The next one is the cheapest on the list and a pretty great game, Homefront. It's going for 49 cents, what a bargain, especially considering the quality here. Pretty solid first-person shooter with a very interesting premise in a war against a reunified Korea led by the dictator. Next we have Metal Gear 5 The Phantom Pain and its prologue, Ground Zeroes. Most of you know this better than I do. I have yet to play 5 and 4 for that matter. I am late, very late. There's Delta coming, I know. Anyways, there is a definitive edition of 5 with both titles and a bunch of extras to consider. Next are Metros 2033 and Last Light. These are solid first-person shooters with a bit of horror, which is pretty cool. People who played them swear by them. A remastered called Redux brings both to newer consoles with remastered visuals. You should look up the comparisons to decide which is better, cause they are drastically different and I like both. Redux is better looking, but the originals have more fog, which creates a different atmosphere, so you be the judge. Skyrim is also getting a discount. This is a very well-known game. I will not explain it to save us all time. A bunch of different versions exist for this game, including Anniversary Edition with all the DLCs, fan-made content, and loads of stuff I can't list it all here. A superbly well-received game that I never played is Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, 9.5s across the board, and this one seems to never have been brought over to more modern consoles, so there has never been a better time to grab it with the very low price. I see little reason to grab Shadows of Mordor on the 360 or PlayStation 3 for that matter, as the PlayStation 4 Xbox One versions are superior. Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare was decently well received, mixing multiplayer online gameplay with third-person shooting and the tower defense roots of the series. People dislike the microtransaction focus here apparently though. Wing Commander Arena is a space shooter that received very bad reviews, all between 3s and 4s, so I'm trusting those that that this is not a very worthwhile game. A track and field Xbox 360 part of the arcade game with added leaderboards exists. I don't know why, but it does. Puzzle Chronicles is a clone of Puzzle Quest with bad visuals but apparently pretty decent puzzle gameplay. That's all I know about it. Rabbids Invasion, the interactive TV show, is a Kinect game that is what the subtitle says, an interactive show. You watch the animation and do a whole bunch of simple minigames. Apparently it's great for kids. Then the infamous Mighty Number 9. They tragically miscalculated the amount of work necessary to pull off this project, and the game ended up under-delivering. You already know about that. The game is not all bad though, someone may have fun here. The problem was more about the discrepancy between promise and reality. The 95% discount may justify a purchase though. Dark seems to be a very bad video game about stealthing as a vampire. No one seems to like this. The graphics look kinda cool, but the same can't be said about the gameplay apparently. Cars 3 Driven to Win, I never knew existed until now. It seems to be a decent racer though. There are parts of this to recent consoles like Switch. Just Dance Kids 2014 is another game added to the discounts, joining all the other Just Dance games, and that's all I'll say about that. And that's it, people. 94 games, good grief. Stay tuned for part 5C. They will add more games to the discount on July 16th. And in the meantime, a lot more 360 stuff. I am concentrating 100% on this now. The next video is almost ready and will be about region-free games, and it's a total blast. Stay tuned for that. And there's a lot more coming too. If this was helpful to you, please do the stupid engagement things, subscribes and shares and likes and comments, so this can be shown to more people and be helpful to them as well. To help this channel stay alive though, the best way is through Patreon. $1 makes a huge difference for you. I will eventually have to stop doing this if things don't pick up, because I have a daughter to put through school and it's so expensive, man. I was doing the math here, and if just 1% of you would chip in, it would already be enough, seriously. So come on over, let's keep this going. So alright, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.